year ago, as you all will remember, in the newspaper, we were loaded with conversations about the undocumented migrant people who were flooding the border between Mexico and the U.S. And so at the planning meeting, there was a desire to begin to really address this issue at our global to local lunches. As time goes on, as you know, you can't always get speakers when you have the issue, but we fortunately were able to engage Doris Valentin, who is the director of Hispanic Migrant Ministry at the Diocese of Buffalo, to join us, and she is here today. I know that in our public media, the big issue right now is Syria, but I think it's also exploding, the whole migrant issue, and if we listen to the stats, we know that over 60 million, and I don't know how we count them, people are on the move to survive. The issue is very dear to my heart. My husband was an illegal from Mexico. He arrived here with his family in the 30s. They left Mexico in part because of religious persecution. At least that was what mobilized Grandpa to come here. What mobilized his mother was that she had lost 2 children to starvation after my husband was born, and she said no way would she lose another child to starvation, and she wanted her children to be able to read and write. And so they were coming to this country. They followed the railroad and ended up in Oklahoma, and that is where they lived in the shadow of an illegal life for well over 20 years. So all the implications of that are very powerful and resonate very deeply with me. When I met with Doris, I was really struck with the sensitivity that she brings to the conversation she has with the people who work in what is a very rural area of Western New York. How many of you have been to Orleans, Niagara, and Genesee County? You have? Yes. Isn't it a shock? I mean, it is farmland. And so we know that there are migrant workers there of various statuses. And so Doris comes to us in this very rural area from a professional lifetime spent in both Puerto Rico and New York City doing child welfare work, mental health work, case management work, work with the court system. And when time came for her to choose a master's level program, she chose pastoral ministry. And her thinking was that the people who migrate, who lose everything, in transitioning into their new world, very much anchor themselves in their spiritual tradition, their faith tradition, their religion. And that became very important to her as she progressed and got to know the community. So I turn this over to you, Doris.
Okay.
And welcome you. And I think you're encouraging us to have a conversation, right? So people.
Yes. Okay. I'm not an electronic person, so I say when they ask me about all these things of media and all that kind of stuff, I always say that I am like a dinosaur. Okay. So I still trying to learn. Okay. But I think that it's more important for us to have a conversation on this. Okay, one of the things I've learned with PowerPoints is that most people pay attention to the PowerPoint and not to the conversation. Okay, so that's what we are going to avoid today. And well, as she says, I only have 3.5 years in this area. I was living for 25 years in New York City, and of course, the rest of my life in Puerto Rico. Okay, so, and Puerto Ricans have a long history of immigration, you know, in the United States and all that kind of things, and also in farm work in different areas like Florida, New York City, in the areas around New York City, and in Western New York also. If you know, there is a quite big community of Puerto Ricans, both in Buffalo and Rochester and around the area. So it's very common here. And they came just as migrants, you know, and as farm workers. And they came as, for example, we're going to talk today. How many came? Who came? Where are they coming from? What are they doing in here? And all that kind of thing. So on these days, most of the migrant workers come from Mexico, other countries in Central America like Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and also we're having now Jamaicans and Haitians. Why the name of the ministry is Hispanic? Because when the ministry began 30 years ago, it was mostly Puerto Ricans, okay, so mostly Hispanics. Now we're thinking in changing, taking out just the Hispanic and leave it as migrant ministry, okay, so because at this point, well, we are already providing services to Jamaicans and Haitians, whatever they are also, you know, so that's part of it. So that's where they come from, why they came to this country. One of the reasons they came to this country is because the system provides for them to come, okay? The system provides for them to come. For example, Puerto Ricans were not thinking in coming to the United States when they became part of the United States. But situations happen and all that kind of things, and they were offered by the government the opportunity to come as guest workers, okay? The same thing, on those times in Spanish, they call them braceros, you know? So probably you have heard that word a lot of times. So now they still come in as guest workers from Mexico, Jamaica, Haiti, El Salvador, Guatemala, and now they are called H-2A. The H-2A workers, those are the guest workers that come on seasonal time periods to work in the farms, okay? And there are H-2B, and those are the workers that come to work in the dairy farms, okay? So that's those are the two ways they call them now, but all of them are guest workers. They come with permits it can vary from 3 months to 8 months. They work over here for this period of time, and then they go back home. The advantages of being an H-2A or H-2B worker is that the farmer has to provide for them the benefit of health insurance, housing, transportation. They pay also for the tickets to bring them and send them back home. Okay, the plane tickets or the bus tickets, whatever they come. Okay, so those are the major things that they have to do. And they provide work at, the minimum has to be over $10. Okay, yeah, $10 is the minimum for their work, and whatever else they can provide. If they can provide $12, great. You know, that's how it goes. So these people, they come with some rights and benefits. They can stay for the time that their permit says, and they do the work in the farms, and they go back home. Then for next year, they have to request again the permission. And they have to go for 2 permissions. It's the permission of the Department of Labor, okay, and then the immigration permission to come into the country. Okay, so they need that. I don't know if you saw on the different papers around Western New York that, like, for example, June, July, the farmers were requesting farm workers because immigration had certain technical issues, and because of that, they were delayed on the permits. So some of the workers just came in here, began to come at the end of July, in August, you know, when they were needed since May. So that's that was one of the things that happened this year with them. So they go home. But there are other people in here that they are also migrants. But in the ministry, after we call them the settled ones, okay? A person is a migrant for 3 years of stay in this country. So if how they got in here? Well, most of them came as H-2A workers, and they were offered the opportunity to stay during the winter by the farmers, okay? It was good for the farmers. They didn't have to pay a ticket back home or anything like that, you know. And for the workers, okay, I'm having work the whole year. I can send money to my home for the whole year. So they decided to stay. But of course, after the date of their permit, they become undocumented. Okay, so that's why we have quite a big population of undocumented people in the area. Okay, and mostly began like that. Some of them moved from other states, you know, to New York, and that was the way. On these days, we have a lot of movement in the borders with what is called the unaccompanied children. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. The unaccompanied children, they are coming in because of many reasons. Okay, and so in terms of undocumented children, if you want to know what happens to a child, there are some documentals that there are going on in Netflix and in the movies and all that kind of things about migration and things like that. I have a couple of them written over here. There is a documental very interesting. It's called The Beast. Yeah, it's called The Beast. It's a train. Okay, it's the train that moves people from the south of Mexico to the north of Mexico. And many of these people just get into this train on the top of the train because these are commercial trains, not passenger trains. And they get on the top of them and all that kind of things, and that's how they make it to the north border, okay, from different areas and other countries in Central America. So The Beast is one of them. The Train Nowhere is another one. Okay, very good documentals. And there is a movie that it was filmed here in the United States, and it's called Under the Same Moon. Okay, Under the Same Moon tells the story of a child that decided to come by himself, you know, to trying to get to his mother over here after his grandmother, who was taking care of him, passed away in Mexico. Okay, so it's a very interesting movie, and it gives us an idea of what happens and when they decide to move and come in and all that kind of things. All right, so those are some of the things. Probably there are a lot of other ones that you can find by yourself, you know, both in the internet and on Netflix or any other channel, whatever it is. Okay, so what happened with the migrant, for example, the undocumented ones? The undocumented ones, they stay in here. Some of them, the farmer provides housing. Some of them has to pay for their own housing. Okay, they have to pay rent, utilities, and like that, like anybody else. Okay. Contrary to what many people think in this country, these people is not taking away the work of anyone. Okay. What happened right now? What happens every year? Every year, the farmers have to put ads asking for farm workers and all that kind of things. No citizens show up. On these days, not even Puerto Ricans want to do the farm work anymore. Not even African Americans want to do the farm work anymore. Okay, so imagine, and the Anglos less, Americans less. Forget about it. Okay, it's a hard work. It's very, very hard work. That's the reality. So not everybody is willing to do it. And if you are a citizen or if you are a resident in this country, you have other options, of course. So people go for those other options more than for farm working. Okay, but then these people they do that hard work, and they do that hard work just for the minimum. By the federal minimum, how much it is now? $7.25 or $7.65, something like that. Okay, that's it, an hour. Okay, and they work 10 to 15 hours a day. Okay, and on the harvest season, that includes the 7 days of the week. Okay, so, and they do not have medical health insurance. They do not have any type of benefits or anything like that. You might see some ladies going into the social services department to request some services for their children if their children has been born here in this country, if their children are citizens. But besides that, they cannot get any benefits at all. Okay? Sometimes some emergency services that are provided separate, because those are sometimes the good things of the system and also the inconsistencies of the system. Okay? So we are going to speak about some organizations, because the system, both the New York State and the federal government have established certain programs that provide some help for them. Okay? So their children can have health insurance. Okay? And the migrants, for the first 3 years here, you know, the seasonal ones and even the settled ones, for the first 3 years here, they can have health services through a program called Health Services for Migrants. Okay? There are some clinics in the area, like Oak Orchard and the Department of Health, that have a clinic, community clinic, that they, through that program, they provide services to them. Okay? Some of them doesn't have to pay anything, and so some of them has to pay a minimum fee. Okay? And they do that. They provide also educational programs. This is another federal and a state program that provide tutorial services, that provide child care services for them, and other kind of things. Okay? So, and is for the children under 21 years old. Okay? After they are 21, they have to find out their own ways. Okay.
So this is a program New York opted into, or
New York opted into it? Okay. Yes, yes. And these programs, these programs work also for the undocumented people that are here working. Okay, so that's the New York State migrant.
And that's as long as they're within the 3-year window of.
Well, for the children, continues until they're 21. Okay. Yes.
So you talked about the guest workers coming in, and then you talked about the amount of work that that folks need to do.
Right.
When they get the guest worker permit to come in, what is the minimum age? Can kids work? Can kids be working?
Well, to have the guest work permit to work over here, they need to be 18 years old and older. Okay. All the unaccompanied children that they have found on 17 years old, they still have to go to school, you know, and then they have to wait until they are 18 to be able to work. So that's the same for them. But for them, they are providing some other benefits and services, you know, like they are providing housing, they are providing health care services, educational services, and things like that. That's some of different services and issues that they are working on with them right now. Okay, so that's sometimes it's a little bit complicated, you know, especially when you begin to find one program here, no, that doesn't work for you, but this works for this other person, you know, it's quite very complicated. The same thing happens with the immigration laws and all that kind of things, you know. They are quite complicated, they're quite difficult, and we're going to talk about this. I began to take this, well, I am on the process. I continue taking the courses and all that kind of things, but it's too complicated. When I finished my first 40 hours, I was, oh my God, do I really want to continue doing this? Yeah, it's so it's too complicated, the laws and all that kind of things, you know. So, but We're trying. We keep trying, okay, to do certain things. All right. So that's more or less who they are, how they come, what they get, and all that kind of things. Okay, they have a lot of issues over here, okay? And it is, number one of the problems they have is the language, okay? That piece of movie that we showed, that's a documental prepared to show what is immigration and all that kind of things. You saw over there to the part where they get some areas are doing some educational services so that they can learn English and all that kind of and all that kind of stuff. That's one of the biggest problems they have, language. Okay. When I came here, I thought that I was going to work less than I was working in New York City. It ended up that I am working more hours, more days, and all that kind of things, okay? Because I don't have just to provide pastoral services, okay? Pastoral service, sacraments, religious stuff, coordinate religious services. No, I thought that was going to be it. Oh, I am very happy. Okay, no, I do a lot of things. So I have become the transporter of many people to the clinics, to the schools, to immigration court and to offices and all that kind of stuff. So I have been providing transportation. They have become interpreter, translator, okay, because most of the health clinics, most of the lawyers that they have to see when they need to, they don't speak Spanish. And they don't have the Spanish people to translate or anything like that. So they have to bring someone that will translate for them. Okay, so there I am also doing that type of work. And I have become involved in many of the things that happen around, like immigration, a lot of immigration stuff, because they don't know the laws. They don't know the laws, they don't understand the laws, and anything like that. So they need help on all those things too. Okay? So, and they do have what I have called issues that are caused by the society or the system. Okay? And part of it has to do, for example, immigration, labor laws, and all that kind of stuff. It is very funny. I was once in a presentation of a person from the Department of Labor, and they were talking about H-2A, H-2B, the permissions that they have to get, and all that kind of things. And I just asked, why you're always, everybody's complaining in here about immigration, is complaining about a lot of people that doesn't have documents or anything like that. Well, they are doing the farm work. So when you need H-2A workers, why you don't go to the different farms and get people over there? Why you keep bringing people from outside, right? That's one of the problems, and that's one of the questions all the time. Oh, because when they brought the law, they said that they have to apply in their own countries. Oh gosh. Okay. So you cannot change that? Well, it can be changed, but nobody's thinking about it. You know? And of course, they don't listen to us, the ones that think on it. They don't listen to anybody, right? So that's the thing and the situation. So they have a lot of undocumented workers over here that could have been given the opportunity to be H-2As, and they are not being given that opportunity, you know. And we say, yeah, well, it is a shame because people are still coming, and always someone decides to stay for whatever reason. Someone always decides to stay. So probably because we have not foreseen into the future, or because we haven't realized it, but in one way or the other, the system is providing for more undocumented immigration. Okay, so that's another one of the issues that happens. laws. Oh gosh, that's a big, huge issue also. Labor laws. Agriculture is based on slavery. It comes from slavery, and therefore, the first workers over here began having no rights at all, getting very, very low wages and all that kind of things. It has been increasing since they began to do the minimum wages and all that kind of things, so it begins to work out a little bit better. But there is something interesting. For example, a farm has H-2A workers, and they have undocumented workers doing the same work. While the H-2A workers are here, they have to pay them exactly, they have to pay the undocumented exactly as the H-2A. So if they pay $10 to the H-2A, they have to pay $10 to the undocumented, as long as they are working together on the same line. Okay? As soon as the H-2A workers leave, the undocumented goes down to the federal minimum or the state minimum, depending on what they are using. Okay? So the rest of the year until next spring, they are on the lower side of the issue. And some farmers, not to have to increase them, put the undocumented workers, for example, in the barn, doing cleaning and doing other stuff, and put the H-2A outside. They are not working along each other. Therefore, they don't have to pay the undocumented exactly as the H-2A. Okay? All those things go around. Okay, so that's part of the issue. It will be hard for you to understand that to put a portable toilet in a field, it took 10 years of action, community action, to have that done. Okay, 10 years just to have that simple law. It's the same thing happened with having clean and fresh water to drink while they are working. Okay, so for us, we think, well, that's a right that I have. Well, that's a right that we have, but they don't. They didn't until there is, and there's still farms that they do not have, the portable toilets and the fresh water for them to drink. And probably it's a very huge field and they only have one. Imagine 50 workers trying to go to the restroom at the same time. It's hard and it's difficult. So all those things happen over here. So the farm agricultural laws are very slow walking. Okay, and they still we still not get there yet to what we have to get. So what else?
I want to sort of go off, if I may, Doris, on Charlie's question about what age people can be a guest worker status, but we have many families, right? So how do they bring in their children and their spouses, or do they? I mean, how does that work?
Well, the ones that have documents or have permit, they can request them to come, okay? And it is a long process, and they spend a lot of money in lawyers and other kind of things to be able to do it, but some of them get them to do it. If they are not able to get them to come, sometimes they get visas, like tourist visas for some time and all that kind of things, and after they are here, they stay. That's it, or they just have to cross the border. But as a Hispanic theologian says, he always say, we didn't cross the border crossed us. Okay? And if we go into history, we're going to find out that that is true, We know that the southwest part of the United States belonged at some point to Mexico, right? And all that kind of things. And after certain things and certain issues, those sections were annexed into the Union, and some agreements were done with the people that used to live in there. Okay, many of the Texans were Mexican origin. California, they were Mexican origin, and all that kind of things. And they were given agreements to stay in their land and in their houses. After they signed the agreements, things changed, and many of them were told, "You have to get out of here," and they were put out of here, and all that kind of things. So that's part of the history of this country, and it's over there. You look it for yourself. Okay. So, but that's why they always say that, and that's why they think, many of them think, that they have the right to be here, because their parents were born here, and their grandparents were born here. That they were put out because of political issues, that's another thing, but they were born here. So that's one of the things that happened with them. Okay, so that's how everybody comes. When it comes through there are many basics in immigration. Let's say, for example, there is the refugee status, but they don't give refugee status to them. Okay. The Cubans were given refugee status because of certain political issues. Salvadorians at some time were given partial refugee status because of some war and political issues, and therefore they got some what is called PPS, or working permits and things like that. But Mexicans and other Central American places, no. Most of the Jamaicans, Haitians are coming just as H-2A workers over here, okay? So they don't have well, now we'll have probably, how many they said they are accepting? Around 10,000 from the region, Syria or something like that? Okay, well, 10,000 refugees will be. Some of them obtain asylum, because they are able to prove that their lives are in danger if they go back to their country. So that's one of the ways they do it. Others are detained, especially the ones that come undocumented. They are detained by immigration, right? And then they are given a fine of $5,000 to be able to get out of the detention center. And then they are put under the supervision of immigration, okay? So they have offices of supervision, okay? And they have to go every 2 weeks to the supervision office, and they have to have home visits and all that kind of things, okay? So some of them are able to work out certain things. If they have children born here, and if they have any child with a disability or something like that, a health problem, sometimes judges are nice and they give them the opportunities to stay over here for periods of time, or as long as the need is happening into the family. Okay? So, but most of them are just given court hearings. And in Buffalo lately, it has been like 1 year for hearing to hearing, because there is only one judge. And that judge serves, oh my gosh, from half of Pennsylvania, New York State, not including the city, okay? Then they do part of Connecticut and Vermont. So it's a huge area. So the poor judge has been giving court hearings once a year to each person, Most of the time they can go probably for 3 years or 4 years, depending on the calendar of the judge and things like that. And after that, they are just sent home. Okay.
If it's 4 years before your hearing and you don't have the $5,000, are they in the detention center the whole time?
Well, what they do, if you don't have the $5,000, you're still in the detention center until you're deported. Sometimes that can take 6 months, sometimes it takes a year, and sometimes they move them from detention center to detention center. Okay, So they move them from Buffalo to Ohio and then to other places, and sometimes they end up in Texas or somewhere in California. The interesting thing that is sometimes people that is detained in California or in Texas, they are sent to the Buffalo detention center.
So back to the issue of the 5,000. So these people who are displaced, where do they get the 5,000 from? I mean, how is that even a possibility?
Well, one of the things they tell me is that, well, now we always have to save for health, for school, for whatever we need. Now we have to save also for the fund. Okay, that's one of the ways. And the other way is that a group of friends make a collection, reunite, or family members reunite the 5,000. They give the 5,000, and then they also have to work to pay that later on. Okay, so that's mostly how it goes. Yes, and of course they work 15, 20 hours a day for 7 days a week. They're able to, to get the money one way or the other, and that's how they do it. Sometimes it takes years for them to do it. Okay, so
I have a question about how the community responds to having this migrant community in their midst.
Terrible. What I can tell you, terrible. Well, unfortunately, many of the migrants, they're just seen as labor instruments, let's say. They're objects. They're there because we need them to work, but they're not seen as human beings. They are not seen as people that have dignity and that have rights or anything like that. It is like they are the not seen people. Okay. The first time I went to a parish to request time to do a Spanish service. Spanish? We have no Spanish people over here. And I told the person, well, you just have to walk 1 block. Right there in the middle of the town, the farmer, one of the most important farmers in the area, has a whole block, has all the 4 or 5 houses that he has in there. He just housed the workers. Documented and undocumented, but people never saw them. And right there by the post office. So everybody has to go to the post office, but they never saw the workers over there. Okay, but that's how it goes.
In Buffalo, over the past 2 or 3 years, we've had a number of Mexican restaurants spring up. Mm-hmm. So could you talk about the connection between why that happened, maybe?
Well, why that happened? Well, that happened because so many Mexicans are coming to work in the area, and so many Mexicans have stayed that the ones that were able to get working permits and to get residency because of any way, they have decided to begin their own businesses. And that's why you have these Mexican restaurants, and that's why you have what is the Mexican store. For example, Medina, Albion, Batavia, Brockport, all of them have a Mexican store. So where they can go and find all their Mexican groceries and things like that, and they have their small restaurant over there and all that type of things. Okay, so that's the way how they but it's because of that. Okay, and you have their taquerias, during the summer.
Are there other kinds of jobs that offer the H-2A opportunity to the not just farming?
On these days, other type of jobs are coming up, especially with the Dreamers Act. Many young people, that were brought as children over here by their parents, were able to get working permits through DACA. Okay, so these young people are being able now to get into colleges to study, they were doing it. The parents were paying from their own pockets, and they were working half time in the farms to be able to study, part-time and things like that. But now they have the opportunity to go to universities and things like that. There are programs, there are organizations there is one organization called Past Home, okay? Past Home offers housing, assistance with housing, and offers also assistance with education. So they are getting a lot of short trainings, for example, to work in medical labs, nursing, in medical labs, and to work as assistant teachers and things like that. So many of them begin there with the assistance of Past Homes, and then they go through. There are other jobs also in agriculture and in the dairies that they need more technical work. So Past Home is helping them to get into those type of trainings also. Is 1 or 2 years trainings so that they can begin working, and from there, they can find other ways to continue their education and do other things. But on that way, they improve what they are doing. Yes, and they are getting out of the fields little by little. Yeah, especially the young people.
In this area, have you found much abuse of women, rapes that occur, domestic violence because of financial stress within a married relationship?
Yes, that's another of the big issues over here. And there are several organizations that provide for domestic abuse. Okay, here is. Okay, domestic violence is a big problem. There is a big issue in terms of that. And there is the New York State Domestic and Sexual Violence Hotline. They provide services for them. Okay, and they are when situations happen, and sometimes the situations are really difficult. But there is a big problem also. One of the biggest problems is that most of Hispanic women were raised to accept whatever the husband says and does. Okay? So many of them think that if their husbands are alcoholic, if they're abusers physically or mentally or whatever, is because they deserve it, because that's what they were taught and all that kind of things. And then that's where one of the big issues is. So on many occasions, police has to be involved, and they come in, and some of them are helped, and they are provided help, but then they reject it because they don't want to go against the husband. They don't want to file charges against them or anything like that. Okay? And in some cases happens like 3 months ago, the police had to be called, and the victim with the 3 children had to spend 3 nights in jail also, until the organizations were able to work out things to take them out. What happened to these policemen, we don't know, but it seems that they don't know the law already, and that victims have rights and they have to be protected and all that kind of things. And it was very interesting. The perpetrator got out of jail before the wife and the children. Okay, and that just happened 3 months ago. And that, for that reason, what we call the coalition of working services, coalition of migrant and seasonal farm workers services. Okay, so long. We just call it the coalition. These are a number of organizations that provide health services, educational services, legal services, and things like that. We had a meeting with the enforcement agents in the area about 2 months ago, working about these issues, because sometimes one of the reasons why people and women do not inform or call the police when they are abused or things like that is because they end up being in jail or they end up being deported, and they end up being separated from their children, and because then the woman is taken into custody and into detention centers, and the children are given to foster care and all that kind of things. So part of the silence is because of that.
So correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
You know, periodically we read about the immigration officials doing raids,
Yes.
I think. And so I'm curious from your perspective. It seems like it's fairly common knowledge that in places there are, you know, both documented and undocumented workers.
Mm-hmm.
So when do they decide to like crash down on people? You know what I mean? Is it that they're having a boring day and they decide to do that? Do you know what I mean? It's like, because it seems like, you know, from what you're saying, it's probably fairly common knowledge that on different farms there are both documented and undocumented workers. So how do you know how they make the decisions about when they will do raids, what the factors are that go into that decision-making process? You know?
They never say why they do, why they take those decisions. For example, people is walking on the street and they're stopped just by racial profiling, right?
Yeah.
They deny that they do racial profiling. But how come you detain this person that was just walking on the street? You know, how do you know that this person was undocumented? Okay, so sometimes they just do racial profiling. Sometimes they just make a decision. Sometimes someone does an accusation, you know, and calls. Sometimes somebody gets angry with somebody else and say, hey, in this place there are a lot of undocumented people, go and get them, you know, and they go and they get them. You know, that's part of the issue. Another thing that we have realized is, as organizations, is that they do have to comply with certain numbers, you know, through the year, through the months and whatever. So when they see that the year is almost ending and they are not getting their numbers, they begin to do raids, you know, and that's one of the ways they decide to do raids.
Just because I'm being conscious of time and I really wanted to ask this question, as a school social work, I think I saw a lot of interest from people in talking more about this issue and hearing what's going on sort of on the forefront in the communities. And do you see any ways that like students or, you know, the school could engage with the work that you're doing through the coalition? What are the needs? Like what are the asks from the coalition for how we can...
We have the coalition, and there is also another group called Working Together Group. Okay, those are also directors of different organizations. These ones, the Working Together Group mostly does advocacy, okay, and they do, they're the ones that lead a lot of times, you know, some type of community action and trying to change the structures and all that type of things. So they're ones, in the coalition you mostly find the workers that go into the field, okay? And that's what it is. There is an organization that is doing a lot of work. I have it here. Is the New York Immigration Coalition. Okay, the New York Immigration Coalition is doing a lot of advocacy. Is working in outreach and is trying to develop laws and all that kind of things to protect immigrants and agriculture and all that kind of things. I don't know if you know that that is part of the New York Immigration Coalition, together with the Immigration Department. Okay, this BIA recognition and accreditation is a project that they have developed to provide education and to recognize and accredit not-for-profit organizations, lawyers and workers and the staff from the not-for-profit organizations to be able to assist with immigration law and to provide legal services on immigration to the immigrant workers, okay? Because one of the things is to be able to open up for them different services and all that kind of things. Sometimes just to fill out a paper of 2 pages, they have to pay $500 to someone, to a lawyer or to some agency or things like that. So that is outrageous at this point. So, and in the same thing happens, some lawyers who see their cases have to ask them for $10,000 just for that, you know, and sometimes the services, they just present one motion, and 6 or 7 months later, they just go to one court hearing. They have to pay $10,000 for that, and that is so. That's why they are doing that, so that they can have more services, legal services, available for them in terms of that. And the New York Immigration Coalition.org, D-O-R-G, okay? You can find it in the internet and all that kind of things, and you can provide for it. Organizations, including the New York Immigration Coalition, the Immigration Network, and other ones, are trying to push what is called the New York is Home Act. Okay? The New York is Home Act is, as it says here, a comprehensive piece of legislation that seeks to exercise the power the New York has as a state to establish and strengthen the rights and the responsibilities that immigrants, both documented and undocumented, have in New York State. Okay, so they recognize and for some of the things that they are looking for is to have what is called the New York State Citizenship. Okay, what is called the New York State Citizenship, to be able to have professional licenses, to be able to have driver licenses in your state, to be able to vote, to have freedom of information, human rights protections, to be provided with social services, okay, to extend the DREAM Act, and you know, to all the people, and also to be able to trust the system, that they don't have to be deported, to be, to get certain things that they need, and when they are detained or things like that, so that they can have access to certain things. Well, this is something that is being worked out, and it has like 2 years, you know, and different organizations, we're pushing for that and all that kind of thing, so that we can get it's a comprehensive one. They have included just in one all the little laws that have been tried to enact, that have been trying to put in. So that's another one of the things. Any other questions? We have 1 minute.
We have one behind you.
Hi. I've been to the International Institute of Buffalo before, and I know they have a department of victim services where they deal with victims of human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they've had cases in our more rural areas of Western New York.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's still an issue where people are being kind of brought here, promised one thing, and then they turned out?
Yes, it's still an issue. It's still an issue, and you have heard on the news, many people's left on the border and things like that, you know, and it's because of that, you know, and from one state to the other, sometimes they just leave them in some place if they see that they are in risk of being detained by any police, and anything like that. They abandon them and all that kind of stuff. There's still a big issue in terms of that. Yeah.
So I was just gonna say, I know it's 1:30, so people have to go. Please make sure you sign in, especially I'm gonna try and get these papers that you're talking about, Doris, and then maybe scan them and make copies so people can I can email them out to everyone.
Yes, I'm going to leave you here the list of the organizations, okay? Probably a copy of the DREAM Act, some papers over here about the different things that New York Immigration Coalition is doing, and this about some of the organizations. You can make copies, and whoever is interested in them can get them. Okay, I have some brochures on the Hispanic ministry if any one of you wants to see a little bit more of what we do, and if you need to contact me at any time, my phone number is in there and all that kind of things. Okay?